Every marriage, relationship, or friendship is fixable. Every single one of them. The only thing is it comes at a price, and to be honest, a lot of people will not be willing to pay the price, or maybe the marriage or the friendship is not worth, paying the price. Welcome to my thoughts exactly, and in this video, we're going to be talking about all of that. There are 3 steps to fixing a marriage or any broken friendship or relationship, and that is 1, analyzing the price you need to pay to, fix the marriage. 2, weighing the price over the value of the marriage. Weighing the price to see is it even worth fixing in the first place. And then 3, willingness to do what it takes, willingness to pay the price, and fix it. Let's talk about the costs, weighing the price. The first, which is analyzing the price. There are 3 types of costs you might need to bear, or price you might need to pay to fix a marriage. 1 is the emotional price. The second is the ego price. And the third is the practical price. The first one, the emotional price, it involves emotions. It involves subjecting yourself to some kind of emotion. And examples of this are forgiveness, building trust, vulnerability, trauma. A perfect scenario where we can apply this is, let's say a marriage that is going through infidelity, the problem of infidelity. Let's say the husband cheated. Typical situation, the husband cheated on the wife, and the wife got to find out, and now she's broken and trying to, process the whole thing. A perfect way to fix this kind of marriage is the husband, first of all, has to be vulnerable enough to confide in the wife and talk about the whole situation, like the whole cheating thing, like why he cheated, if he actually has a habit or is the first time. He needs to be completely honest, and that requires some level of vulnerability. So from the husband, he's already paying the price of being vulnerable. The wife will now have to pay the price of forgiving him, which is a lot, and building a trust which was broken, because before the cheating there was a trust, I believe, and then it was broken, and now she has to rebuild all that. So there's a lot of emotional costs in this part. They are bearing this cost, and once they are able to pass through all that phase, the forgiveness, the building the trust, they'll be back to where they were. It might not be exactly the same, but they have made progress, and they will eventually make more progress and get back to where they were. Another place where this can be applied, where you see people paying emotional price to fix a marriage, is a situation where the husband or the wife, either of them, has been traumatized in some type of way, and you now have to bear because of the trauma that they faced. They start transferring aggressions to you. You bear the whole brunt of everything. You are there, so everything you are literally there punching back for all the reactions that comes to this trauma. So a perfect way to pay an emotional price in this case will be you bearing that. Secondly, them going for some kind of therapy. You also going for some kind of therapy. At the end of the day, you guys you have spotted the problem, and then you are going to fix it, and then you're going around, you're getting all the help that you need to get, and this involves and together help, you are paying some emotional price. So that is using emotional price to fix a marriage. The second one is the ego. The funny thing is, a lot of relationships actually suffer from ego problem. Like, one person has too much ego to accept that they are wrong, or 2 people are just struggling to, one person just has to compromise and then they'll be fine, but 2 of them are struggling for who is supposed to compromise. So ego is actually one of the most common issues in marriages, and funny enough, it's still one of the hardest things for anybody. A man will pay anything but never let down his pride. So ego is actually one of the biggest issues in marriage. Let's take for an example a husband who wants to be traditional, for example, and he likes when his wife kneels down to offer him food, and then he meets a wife who that kind of hurts her ego. She misinterprets it as something else and doesn't want to do that, and then that becomes like an issue. So 2 things that can happen here is either the husband agrees and just says, you know what, it's fine, if you don't believe in it, let's just there's no point you doing it if you don't believe in it. Or the wife could let down her pride and say, if this means something to you, it's your tradition, I will do it, and let's just keep going. So these are 2 different ways these issues will be solved. But a lot of times, nobody lets down their guard and everybody just, church agbasa, everybody just moves on, and before you know it is the end of the marriage. So in such situations, ego price can be paid, and the marriage or the relationship will come back to what it was. The last but not the least, the practical costs. Now this one is, it involves some kind of, like, let's say cash, or it involves some kind of a job. Let's say the husband is busy with a job, and because of a toxic job, and because of how the job is, it is telling on him, and now he's taking it off on his wife. He's transferring aggression to her. When he goes to work, it's all stress, and then he comes back home and transfers that aggression to her. And then he realized that this is the issue. He could just, give that up and find another one. That is him paying, a practical cost. That's literally giving up his job, to fix his marriage, so that his marriage doesn't go into problems, or to fix the problems that he's facing in his marriage. Because once that happens, problems start, and before you know it, is the end of the marriage. So the husband in that case is paying that practical price to fix the marriage. Another situations where this can happen is loss of property or loss of life. Most importantly, the loss of life. And this is actually a sensitive one, because a lot of people go into relationship or marriages, and they're like, whatever it takes, I will stay in this marriage, even in an abusive marriage. In an abusive marriage, you're literally paying without knowing, you're paying, by your life. You're literally saying, I'm paying a practical cost of my life to be in this marriage. Because when you're in an abusive marriage, anything can happen. And all those things can be, one of them could be the end of you, like your death. So by staying in such marriages, you are paying a practical price of your life by being in a marriage. And that leads me to the second thing, which is weighing the marriage over, weighing the marriage over what you're paying, to see if it is worth it. And take it from me, or in my own belief, is an abusive marriage is never worth staying. Like, an abusive marriage is never worth your life. Like, any other thing can be worth your life. Maybe you put your life on the line for your kids, everything has to be done in a very smart way. But an abusive marriage is definitely not worth anyone's life. So staying in an abusive marriage is you literally saying that I don't care about my life. This marriage is worth my life, and let it go. I understand when people say that, okay, they're going into marriage and it's a life and death situation, it's fine. But when it's an abusive marriage, it's no longer a life and death situation. It's just you being not being realistic, because the person you're staying with is literally trying to harm you, and then you're staying there and saying that, harm me, let me die, because I'm meant for you. That it just doesn't make any sense. So for me, I would say that is definitely not worth saving. But if you believe it's worth saving, I believe it's important to do everything with caution. If it's verbal abuse, you can try to start making the person get therapy at that level. Once it gets to physical abuse, in fact, it should not even get to physical abuse before you leave. You're supposed to be leaving long before it gets to physical abuse, because you never know when it gets to physical abuse. The moment you know is the moment somebody lays their hand on you, and you don't know if that moment they lay their hand on you might be the last time the last chance that you get. So it's important to look at these things, with balance. Now, let's talk about the other situations. You have to weigh the cost and see if your marriage is worth it. Take, for example, there was a relationship I was in where a girl was like, I needed to give up music. Like, I'm passionate about music. And she was like, I needed to give up, learning music or practicing or playing music to be with her. And that was just an instant red flag for me, because I felt like music is my passion, and if staying with you means I have to stop playing entirely, then that would be an issue, because I'll be sad in the marriage, and if I'm sad in the marriage, I don't want to be in it. So this was me literally weighing and saying that music is a greater love for me than being in a relationship or being in a marriage. I'd rather have that on lock and know that I will still eventually find my person who doesn't stop me from that. So that was me literally weighing it. So it's important for you to weigh it And don't feel ashamed about your choice. It's okay to say that something you love is greater than, the marriage, or something you love is greater than being in that marriage. Because when you look at, for example, some people are very worried about like cleanliness, like it bothers them, it makes them literally borderline sad. And if you are with somebody who just happens to be like very dirty, it's okay to pick that over that person. At the end of the day, you just have to weigh your options. Be sure that this thing is really something you cannot do without, and weigh it. If it weighs above your marriage, it's totally fine. If it doesn't weigh above your marriage, then it kind of helps you, with perspective. So that at the end of the day, when you decide to leave the marriage, you will leave knowing that you had already weighed your options very well. Not because a lot of people actually leave marriages without, any thought of what exactly made them leave, and then they leave and then they start thinking in retrospect like that thing wasn't even worth it. Like I could have lived with it. So it's important to always find the balance. Like look at what you're living for and see if it's something that you can actually live with, not something that makes you sad. If it makes you sad, if you're going to be in the marriage sad, it's probably not something you should be doing. But let's say it is something that you can actually, that just involves you, paying some kind of ego price or emotional price or some practical price just to make it work. So you look at it and say, is this person even worth me putting all this effort? If the person is worth it, then maybe you should put all the effort. If the person is not worth it, then maybe it's time, you put an end to the whole marriage and move on from it, or the whole relationship. And when weighing, you also consider what the good things the person brings to you. Like the person gives you peace, the person brings you consider all that, and then you consider the bad thing that the reason you are even considering all this in the first place. When you weigh it, you ask yourself, if I put this effort, like for example, if it's an emotional effort from my side, if I put all this emotional effort, is it going to, be worth it in the end? If it's going to be worth it, then maybe you should do it. If it's not going to be worth it, then maybe that was just the end for you. And then thirdly, you now decide, willingness to do it. And this willingness does not just involve you, it involves your partner. In fact, the whole process involves your partner, but a lot of it is on your own, but they have to be doing that too on their own. So willingness to, make things work. As you already know, it takes two to tango. So when you're willing, for example, you're willing to compromise on certain parts, your partner should also be willing to compromise on certain parts, and then you find the balance. But I think it's important to let your partner do that instead of, once you start having expectations of them, compromising on certain parts, that might take you back to square one. So it's important to, when you have gone through all this process, look at it for you, like for yourself. Try to always look at it from your perspective, because once you are considering your partner in all of it, it might, affect your decision, or it might affect the whole process. So look at it from your perspective. Like, first of all, am I willing to pay this? What is the price to be paid? Is this price worth the person that I am with? And then third, last but not the least, am I willing to pay the price? And then if you're willing, there you have it. Your marriage might just have a chance to be saved. And if you don't, it is totally okay to not be willing. Because at the end of the day, I believe you have weighed it and you have seen that the marriage wasn't just worth it, or the relationship wasn't worth fixing. And on that note, that will be the end. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you in another video. Peace.